meeting is being recorded.
Okay, I guess it's being recorded now.
Yep.
I'm not too sure how you get, okay, I guess you got a copy. Well, okay, I think we should move along. I don't know, Charles, you might be the kind of the MC if you don't mind.
Gee.
Okay, I thought we might start by maybe a quick response on status. I do see a couple of folks on here that are familiar with their local status, I would guess.
Excuse me, Ted.
Yes.
Brian sent out an outline agenda, excuse me, for the meeting. So all we got to do is follow that, I think, and
Yeah.
fill in the blanks.
Yeah, I do not have that. So if you can you follow that agenda, Don?
Yeah. Am I the only one that has it?
I don't
we
know.
all have it. It's on the mailing list. It was sent out
Yeah.
on packet by me last night as a
Yeah.
bulletin to all sysops in the
Yeah.
United States. So it's out there.
All right. So Charles, can you do that then? Just follow that.
All right. Let me bring it up out of my email here.
Yeah, and the reason it's hard for me to do that and take notes at the same time.
That sounds reasonable, yeah. Well, the packet, I'm in Florida. There's no information on the packet network in Florida. So we might ask Pat.
Well,
Pat,
before MLB got the wire gut up, right?
yes, thanks to you, Charles, and others. I presume it came down here, but I did not see it this morning. So we'll move along. And Charles, have you got the agenda? What's the first item?
I don't know if he's got it specifically in an order, but we can just bang them out one at a time.
Okay.
All right. So first thing he's got on here are the ham gate systems. Now, thing is, he mentions the Arden mesh network, and he was going to talk about that part of it.
Okay. I guess we'll have to wait for him to show up to talk about that then.
Yeah, because we were talking about ways of making the Arden mesh network work with the ham gates and the WireGuard VPNs, and it's easy to do. Just that I think for people to really understand how the mesh network operates, he would have to describe what he's doing and how he's got it set up and all that.
Well, you might mention, Charles, that briefly what Arden is.
Personally, I don't run it, but it's an amateur radio emergency digital network, which is basically the a mesh network is where any station that has the same configuration typically they're using Wi-Fi routers that have a special firmware burned into it. They can like self-heal paths if you have multiple stations that you can connect at the same time, because they are Wi-Fi based. So that's 2.4 gigs, let's say. The range is limited. So it's not like you're going to use one and all of a sudden you're going to be heard 50 miles away. It's mostly for, relatively small areas. And just like anything on 44 nets, just like the internet, anything you can push through it, it'll be transmitted. The only thing is we have to keep it for 97.
Does it connect to the 44 net or just the
that's
commercial?
Just it. All right. They are mostly self-contained. Okay, and Andrew could probably jump in on this. I know he's doing something with this up there in his neck of the woods. They're basically self-contained, and only recently, over the past couple of years, they've been able to set up tunnels between the mesh islands. So let's say you've got one in central New York and one in Virginia and one in Ohio and one in Wisconsin and one in North Carolina. And the only way they could talk to each other was to set up basically a VPN tunnel between them. But I've been advocating that everybody just put everything on 44 net, and the answer I get back is, oh, these automatically come set up for the 10 network instead of 44 network. So it's like, okay, Well, if you want to get on the 44 network, just float, let's say, a JNOS BBS on one of the nodes and have that talk to the 44 net on one port and go talk to the rest of the local mesh network on the other port.
Mm.
The flexibility of we're just routing packets. Okay, so as long as they can stay contained within the amateur radio network, not get lost in the wild, or even worse, have the wild internet get into our amateur radio networks. That's the more important thing. Then we can route the packets. So the idea in Brian and I having conversation the other night was to have, let's say, the state ham gates, which are running a WireGuard VPN server, have that talk to one of the nodes of a particular mesh network. So the one that Brian has where he is in Cooperstown, the one that Andrew has up in Herkimer County, and have them talk to the ham gate. And because we would be using 44 net addresses for that link, then we can make sure that the only traffic going back and forth is amateur related.
Mhm. Okay, sounds good.
Right. So that was the idea behind that.
Yeah.
But like you said, I don't run mesh networks myself down here, though we are talking about doing a few other things, which is further down in the agenda. But to understand what the Hamgate project is, that's why Brian put the link in that email, is that you can go to that website and you can find the document for your particular state, which I know there are some people in other states like Ohio that would like to have one. No, we do not currently have one, but I have forwarded the information in the past to KB8UVN. So you might want to check with him, Chuck. Maybe Matt's forgotten or he's trying to figure out how to do it, but he can always talk back to me and I can help him get that set up. It's not that hard to do. See, the way I do it on each of the states, I have a Linode, now Akamai, because Akamai bought Linode. I have a cloud-based instance, which is only $5 a month. It doesn't have to be that fancy. It's like 2 gigs in size. And I just float JNOS on there for all the messaging and the WireGuard server, which acts as the anchor point for everybody who's running the WireGuard client at their locations. So there's one in each state. So there's one in Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, So you can have a brand new BBS in your state, like Eric wants to set his back up, and now he's in Pennsylvania. You could be guaranteed having at least one forwarding partner, which happens to be the state Hamgate, which runs all the traffic through there. Bulletins, personal messages, NTS, you name it. So that's why we had come up with this concept. NI2O and I came up with this concept a number of years ago. And then we had the opportunity to implement it back in 2022, which amazingly, ARDC seems to be copying what we're doing. Hey, somebody's got to start it, right?
Yeah. Anybody have questions about that? Okay, well, if Brian
NTUMC here.
Go ahead.
I really don't have a question because this is my first time on this Zoom call, and I've only been a general for 5 days.
Oh, gee. Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Hey, John.
But I'm here to learn.
John, no footprint in the elevator door like last time.
That's good.
Well, I know on past gatherings we would have an introduction, but maybe we can do that later if that's what the agenda calls for. But
I know I read Charlie's emails. We got a full agenda. I just thought I'd toss that in because it seems like you guys know each other. So I'm going to mute and listen and learn.
Oh, no, we're all strangers, Frank,
Okay, we have mostly joined these meetings from every 3 months, so that's kind of how we know each other. by call sign most likely, and some folks are new to the activity, so we welcome everybody. So, Charles, is there something next on the agenda?
Oh, the next on the agenda is Mesh-tastic, which is another type of mesh system. But again, that's not something I have, and Brian wanted to bring that up. So unless somebody else is already working with this, I think we could leave it until he gets here. The only thing that from his comments the other night was that this is a type of mesh system that operates mostly on 900 megahertz, and you will find even it's good to hear, Jeff. Okay. There are a lot of people who do not even have a ham license because the 900 megahertz band is shared. So even though we have it in our band allocation, there are non-hams in that band as well, and cordless phones, and believe it or not, you know the Easy Pass system for your cars. They operate at 915 megahertz. And whatever you do not transmit on a 900 meg transmitter as you're going through an Easy Pass location. You will swamp out all the receivers. NI2O did that at the entrance of the Holland Tunnel about 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago.
Okay, well, let's move on, Charles.
All right, so the next one is VARA. And how is VARA being used in our network? So I know there's several of you that are on here that are using VARA now for bulletin forwarding between your systems. Somebody want to speak up on that? Andrew, Jeff, whoever.
I can take this one, Charles.
All right, N3MEL. Okay, go ahead, Glenn.
Good evening, everyone. Glenn, N3MEL. I'm in Southeastern PA. Excuse me, I got frog in my throat. So yeah, there's a few of us on here. I guess Andrew and Jeff. I see David down in Virginia on tonight, and so we're using VARA HF on 40 meters daytime, 80 meters evening, 24/7, and BPQ, and forwarding generally up and down the coast. There's a few stations that join in from Florida once in a while. Ray's on here. Ray's sending some personal traffic. The other day, he sent one through me from VARA. At nighttime on 80, we can connect out to Wisconsin. We've done a little forwarding there. That path's not the best, but it's growing. So we're in New York, we're in Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and Brian's not on here tonight, KA1 VSC, but he was on the air in Connecticut for a while, but he has trouble with his radio, and so doesn't mess with it too much. But we're having great success with it. The throughput is phenomenal, and we're running no more than 500 bandwidth, and we're in the unattended automatic section of the band, and doing very well. So I realize there's some negatives about VARA, and one is the licensing, and I get it, and the non-open source, I get that as well. But on the other side of the flip side of the coin, we're on the frequency, we're off the frequency in much greater rates. I mean, at nighttime, Jeff in New York and I can get 1250 bits per second on HF, and pass a message in just seconds. So I think it's great for the backbone. I have nothing against AX25, and I think all the user reports and all that we're all doing AX25 on, I wouldn't want to see any of that go away. But on the back end, and probably the other thing that works the best is that we occasionally get trampled by some 23 or 27 bandwidth WinLink, and being NVIS, we can still pass our traffic right inside their signals. If they choose to cross over into the unattended section, we feel obliged, since we're automatic, just to do our thing. And yes, it slows down, but at the 500 bandwidth, it does very well. So I don't know if Jeff or Andrew or anybody wants to add anything to that, but we've enjoyed some success. Jeff and I've been, I guess, connected almost 2 years now, and been working great.
I'll add on. This is Michael WZ0C. In addition to what Glenn's group is doing, Matt WE1H and I have been doing exchange between his BPQ bulletin board and my JNOS bulletin board with VARA on 6 meters. Because of a large hill between us, we found that 6 meters wasn't the best band. We've now switched over to 40 meters, but we also had really good success with VARA.
All right, Michael, you're doing an NVIS type of setup?
Yeah, I guess it would be, given that, he's only about 35 miles away.
Okay.
Yeah, it works very well for passing backbone traffic. Like Glenn's saying, goes through really quickly, and even when there's interference or other traffic going on, it still gets through. So I got no complaints, and very happy with it. Jeff and I have been talking about experimenting on 30 meters with vertical when the weather gets a little bit better and it's more conducive to antenna work, but that might be an interesting experiment as well.
Well, especially since the entire 30-meter band is data only. So I'm sure you could find a little sliver somewhere. Oh, I don't know, maybe 10.136, just smack in the middle of that and say, okay, here we go.
Charles, I got a request.
Yeah, Don.
KA4KKF, would you please add your name to to that your window? You can do that. Top right corner, there should be 3 dots. If you click on them, I'm sorry, after your name, there should be 3 dots you can click on, and it allows you to change, and you can add your name to it. Thank you. What did he put it? Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, we get David in there now.
And I guess the final piece of the puzzle is that we're looking for additional stations. We trying to leapfrog this as far as we can. We don't want everybody. We don't expect everybody to be able to connect to everyone, but in the invis path, we only need to get to the next station in any compass direction from the next one, and let BPQ or JNOS or whatever anybody's using do its job. So pretty good stuff going on, and it's great to have radio back in packet radio.
Every so often I get into conversations with people about 44net, and especially those who are coming back to packet. They were in it in the 90s and they went away for a while and they come back, and they say, well, 44net, that's all on the internet. I want to go back to real radio. And I have to remind them that before about 2000, 2002, most of us used 44net on the air and not on the internet, because it wasn't that easy for us to do the NCAP routing from our homes. So protocol means nothing. The transport mechanism means nothing. We are so flexible. We can do anything on any transport. You want to do it on the air, you want to do it on the internet, you want to do it on mesh microwave, you can do it. Let your imagination run wild, as long as you stay within the rules, which thankfully the FCC has opened up its ruling about baud rates on HF. Now we're just waiting for them to do the same thing on VHF, UHF. I know Steve, if you want to jump in, Steve Stroh. if anybody is not reading his newsletter, you better. Good stuff every Friday night.
Thank you. I don't have anything to add to what you said other than we're waiting, and there's every reason to be hopeful that the FCC will grant the request as expressed by the majority of the commenters, that they simply delete the bandwidth limits on the VHF UHF bands and depend on the gentleman's agreement and the band plans, et cetera, and just good amateur practice. And I was very impressed with the ARRL's comments and reply comments that basically said there's, reminded the FCC that there's ample language in the amateur regulations that nobody is going to get away with being stupid and doing stupid things, like, a signal that swamps an entire band, even though that there's no specific prohibition against it if they delete the bandwidth limits. So, yeah, we're very hopeful and looking forward to it. And if you want to take a look at the newsletter that was so nicely mentioned, it's Zero Retries, ZERORETRIES.org.
Okay, Steve.
Back to the mod.
Steve, could you briefly mention how that would enhance what we're trying to do here?
Well, for example, you're going to talk about new packet radio later on. At least it was on the agenda.
Yep.
We in the U.S. can only use the stupid mode that some of us call it because the limit for the 420 to 450 band, 70 centimeters, is currently 100 kilohertz. That's the slowest that new packet radio will do. If you can use a 1 megahertz channel on the 440 band, you can run up to 1 megabit per second. And keep in mind, this is UHF. This is a little radio. It's relatively inexpensive. You can get power amplifiers to run power. So you could be zipping around at 1 megabit per second on 420 to 450 if the FCC relaxes the bandwidth limits on 440. Now, a number of us pointed out that if you call your transmission data, you are limited to 100 kilohertz under the current rules. If you call your modulation amateur television, digital television, there is no such limit, even though the common use is 6 megahertz channel. So that's one example. Another one is that we have a little sliver of spectrum at 219 to 220 that has some very specialized requirements, one of which is another one of those 100 kilohertz channels. If, say, somebody could adapt the new packet radio technology to 219 to 220, and they took off the bandwidth limits, we could be running, 1 megabit per second point-to-point links on 219 to 220. So there's a lot of hope to be had. And another band that we haven't been utilizing much, at least out here in the West, is 6 meters. We've got 4 megahertz there. Let your imagination run wild. So back to net.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Steve, the question was at zeroretries.org, correct?
That's correct. Spell out zero retries, RETRIES. Most of the spell checkers try to change that to retires.org.
We're all baby boomers. We're all retiring now.
I'll post it on the chat.
Okay, good. And yeah, I was going to touch on that when I talked about the new packet radio, but yeah, maybe we should make that the next thing we jump into now, just to segue into it. New Packet Radio came. I'm getting a feedback somewhere. Someone's got a very loud speaker going. New Packet Radio came out of France. And basically what it is, how many of you were in the IT field and remember Token Ring?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So while it isn't specifically Token Ring, where one node passes to the next and passes to the next, it's sort of like the old speaking stick in the old caveman and Native American tribes. It's my turn to speak. I'm holding the stick if you pass the stick around. What New Packet Radio you're using is basically DAMA. Okay, so each station that's a slave to the master system is assigned a particular time slot. So it's sort of like DMR. Anybody runs DMR, time slot 1, time slot 2. Well, imagine you've got 8 time slots, which means you can have 8 stations connected to the one master. And each one is giving a slice of time and then moves over to the next one. So station 1 gets a slice of time, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and back. If you only got 3 stations on your network, then it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it goes a little bit faster. But it keeps them separate, and it's all done in the Ethernet, the TCP/IP domain. And 44net, hey, that's easy. We just assign numbers to it. NI2O's set one up down where he is, down in Wayne, Pennsylvania. Of course, he's still trying to get users get their equipment to be part of the network, but he's got the hub set up. The idea is, all right, we talked about having point-to-point links, let's say on UHF 9600 board, links between our systems. And you only want 2 stations on the network. This way there's no hidden transmitter syndrome problem. There's no station off the beam, off to the side of your connection. So you have a nice clean signal back and forth. Well, let's say you've got a handful of stations and you're near enough to each other. And right now, and as was discussed, it's only set up for 70 centimeters. But the idea is to change out the RF module so we can put it on 900 or 220 or whatever. But if you got a bunch of stations and they're all connected to the one central hub, the one master, typically in the past we would all share the same frequency, and that becomes a mess. We would all hear each other, we'd be stepping on each other, we'd be backing off. It gets kind of crazy. But with this, even using the same frequency, the identical frequency for all 8 slave stations in the master, it doesn't matter, because each station only gets 1 time slot. So when the time slot's over and goes to the next station, then those are the only 2 stations talking to each other. Station 2 in the master, then station 3 in the master. So it still becomes a point-to-point link, even though everybody's on the same frequency. So that's what we're looking to do here in New York City. We have a station, I don't know if he's on tonight, Charlie, KC2NPV, lives in a 30-story condo building in the west side of Greenwich Village. And he doesn't have many tall buildings around him where he is. So it's a perfect spot. He's just trying to work out details as far as the roof and the antenna and setting up a little radio room and all that. But from his location, he can easily have a connection to Queens or Brooklyn or Northern Manhattan or where I live in Staten Island. Charlie and I talk simplex on VHF or UHF. And I'm not using much power, neither is he. His height definitely helps. So our idea as part of our subnet down here in New York City is to have key stations in different areas be part of this. And once you've got that set up on the RF side, the Ethernet routing part of it on 44net is easy. Yeah, it's just like any other type of network routing that you've got going on in your house or you do it at work. I mean, Andrew does this at work all the time. I do it at work all the time. And after a while, you get sick of it. But this is amateur radio. We gotta do it for the sake of the hobby, and everybody else is with us. That's right. Don't choke on that, Andrew. So that's what we're trying to do down here. It's just a matter of finding the right stations that want to be part of it. And Brian had mentioned that he's got a software package that will work out the paths for us from all sorts of different people's houses, or if they're in an apartment building and trees and other buildings around us. So, we'll just work on that kind of detail. It's not that expensive. New Packet Radio is about $70. The only thing is because of the fast time switching between its time slots, if you're going to amplify your signal, you need to get the amplifier that's made for DMR radios. 5 watts in, 20 watts out. They sell it on Amazon. Got the box over there on the other side of the room. VGC, Victor Golf Charlie. If you look that up on Amazon. That's why a regular amplifier, analog amplifier, doesn't work with people trying to use DMR radios. You need that faster switching. And that's what this amplifier does. If you need more power, you use this. But the point is both ends of the network have to have the same relative signal that they receive from the other stations. So it's got to be a balanced path. And Brian can give more details because he does this professionally with wireless ISPs and stuff. But definitely read the link on it. There's a lot of good information in there. But that's how we would manage this single point master to the multi-point, all the other stations. So think of it as we've got a 2-meter user port in downtown Brooklyn. And on the other side of it is the link going into the NPR radio, which goes into Charlie's location in Manhattan. And when Mark first came out with this, he was playing with it a few years ago, and he told me about the speed limitation with the FCC. He said, "Oh, we can only use it on, I think it's 20 or 22 is what they give the name of that speed." I immediately said, "So why not put it into the amateur television band? They've already converted their stuff to digital. You can use 1 megahertz of the 6 megahertz they used to use." He said, "But you can't. It's image, and this is data." I said, "No, just send a picture once in a while. Who's going to look?" I'd rather ask forgiveness than ask permission. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Anybody else using NPR where they are?
Charles, Michael WZ0C again. I have a couple up here. I have one set up, and I have all the networking set up, but I haven't been able to get the distance out of it to pair with somebody else yet. But it is a sort of a background project at this point to see if we can get that figured out.
Okay, but you've got it working across your workbench or across your house.
Yeah, exactly. I can get it over short distance just fine.
Okay. Well, one of the things I was reading an article on DMR a few years ago that there was some stations down in New Zealand who were experimenting how far of a distance can you go from each other and still maintain that DMR contact because of the time slot timing issue. And there was like this U-shaped bay, and they both started near each other, and they walked away from each other in different directions around the U until they were losing the connectivity because of the timing. The time it took for one packet to get to the other end, and it crashed into the other one trying to come back. So there are distance limitations when you're trying to do something like this?
Yeah, the challenge I've been running into is I think that the amps aren't keying up fast enough, so I'm losing part of the slot.
Did you get the VGC amp?
I don't remember which one I got, but I did get ones that were recommended for the project. But I think there's a hack you have to do, which is changing the sensitivity because the NPR device doesn't put out the 5 watts, puts out something less than that, and so you need
Right.
to make the amp a little bit more sensitive so it keys up earlier.
Mhm.
And I haven't taken the opportunity to do that hack yet.
Okay. Do you know if there's like an RTS DTR line that maybe could be used rather than waiting for the
Yeah, that's a
signal to
good
come
point.
through?
That's a good point. I have not looked into that. I'll have to check on that.
Okay, I think that would be a little bit more immediate than waiting to sense the RF.
Certainly, certainly.
Yeah, as with any transmitter, there is a ramp up time. You don't go immediately from 0 to 5 watts. You're going to ramp up through it. It might be microseconds, but you still have to ramp up to it. But when it comes to digital switching circuitry, it makes a difference. So if you can just get a keying line, be almost instantaneous. I think that would help. Okay. So what do we got next? White pages. Yeah. Everybody's using white pages, right? You should. Should be part of your BBS software. So Brian came up with these interesting comparisons that using the BBS white pages is sort of like, oh, gee, for us old timers, phone books. Remember the thing you sat on when you were a kid to make you taller at the kitchen table? Or those of us in the IT field, DNS servers and looking up IP addresses to FQDNs, fully qualified domain names. Well, why do we use it in Packet, guys? What was that?
To automatically address outbound mail.
A station in, let's say, Oregon. You know he's out there, but you don't know what is his proper hierarchical addressing so you can get the message to him. Hopefully, somebody's got him in their white pages database and has propagated that throughout the network. So all you have to do is just punch in the call sign, and hopefully they're in there, and boom, pops up. Yep, DNS for Packet. Basically, you just only this time we're using call signs to get the full address. But as we saw in some of the comments on mailing lists over the past few days, this dovetails into the whole question of hierarchical addressing. What is it? How do we do it? Why do we do it a certain way? And well, it works, so it should be all right, when sometimes they're not. Don, can you give me permission to share the screen?
Yes. That was Charles that asked that, right?
Yep.
All right, let me find you on the list, and I can do that. Okay. All right, I will make you co-host, and then you can do you can do that.
All right, thank you.
Let's see. Do you want to make this? Yeah, I think so. Okay, it should have come up on your screen.
I see the recording screen. Let me hit share screen. See, okay, that lets me do that. Good. All right,
It-
let me find the right document.
It allowed you to do it, right?
It looks like it, yeah.
Okay.
Just let me find the right document. This way I can share it properly. Hierarchical latches. There we go. Put that over there. And I got too many things open on my laptop. Let's see, vertical tree. Da, 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 da. All right, let's see if all right, so you should see a document from 1994. Does everybody see this?
Yep.
Okay. So when the question comes up, well, who said this is how we do a hierarchical addressing? This is the document that started the whole thing. Because before that, we would have things like, all right, if you see this first example here that ends in NOAM, well, that stands for North America. And we'll get into that in a second. But before this, people would use NA as a two-letter abbreviation. So we'd use NA for North America, SA for South America, EU for Europe. The problem was that if somebody's routing filters were not set appropriately, they would see the NA and, well, that's the country code for Namibia. And they would send it off to Africa somewhere, to South America to be forwarded, rather than leaving it here in the States. So this helped in dealing with that, so that you would have the call sign of the station, the state, at least here in the United States, 2 letters for the state, 3 letters for the country code, and then 4 letters for the continent. Now, this was before, way before the internet started doing any type of tail end of URL as 4 letters. It used to be .com, .org, .mil, .edu. They were all 3-letter codes. So if we used 4-letter codes, yeah, we could route it, not worry about confusing this with the internet. But now we got all sorts of things out there now, like .legal and some of them are kind of weird. But anyway, but we had this back in 1994. The way that works is this. Okay. So the way we use it, at least here in the Northeast, and a lot of places around the country and around the world are doing this. So you would have the BBS call sign come first. If you needed a smaller geographical area, like we do here in the Northeast, most of us will do either a county code, so pound sign and then the county code. So for me, in Richmond County of New York, it would be pound RICH. The region for us in this country would be states. So ny.usa.noam. Some stations in this octothorpe, yes, it's a strange name, but in the pound sign would put their ARRL section, like pound NNY, pound SNJ. Okay, that's fine if there is a very small number of stations in that section. Like you are the only BBS that handles all of Southern New Jersey, then it would route to you. But as we get more stations come online and they're in different counties, and if you're trying to route a message, especially if it's a message dealing with a county emergency management office or radiogram, NTS type traffic handling, ICS 213s and such, you want to be able to route it in a more granular fashion into the counties rather than a league section. There are some league sections in this country which take up the entire state. Look at Colorado. Okay, how many counties are in Colorado? You're going to send it to just the Colorado section and hope it gets to where it has to go? Kind of long and messy and has a chance for problems. I would rather have a route directly to a county or a group of counties so that it'll get there. And that's the whole idea behind the networking scheme that we're trying to make work. And that's why we want to have voting partners in different parts of the country, in different parts of their state, so that we can get the message to them. So the hierarchical addressing scheme, if we all stick to the same type of layout, it makes it so much easier to make it work. So the way it's set up, so these are the continental identifiers. 4 letters, and it's very logical. Instead of just saying Asia, well, okay, there are different parts of that area. But for now, Asia means the Orient. At one time, they would say .as, and it would be the entire Far East, including the Pacific Ocean. So now we've narrowed it down so that Australia, New Zealand, AUNZ, you know, it's going to that area. You've got the Eastern Pacific Islands, the Northern Pacific Islands, the Southern Pacific Islands, the Western Pacific Islands. So the granularity helps in the forwarding. We just need more stations in some of these areas.
Hey, Charles?
Yeah.
Could you just scroll to the top of the page document so I can grab the heading for the minutes?
Yeah.
Just for a second.
Right. All the documents that I talk about from time to time, they're on the ham gates. If you go to hamgate.amper.org, you'll see a link that says useful documents. And everything I could find, I shove in there. So whether it's maps or PDFs or, you know, pictures or whatever, you can go there and find them. You'll probably get lost, probably fall asleep reading too much, but the stuff is there.
Okay, would you give me that address again?
hamgate.ampr.org. And
wait a minute. Hamgate.pr.
Hello?
AM, Alpha Mike Papa Romeo.
Hello?
.org.
Hi, welcome to McDonald's. Are you the phone app today?
Somebody's talking.
No?
Okay, how
Hello?
can I help you?
Mark, your
Could I get
microphone's
the
open.
quarter pounder deluxe?
Okay, I
meal
didn't
with
get
Diet
that,
Coke?
Charles.
Yeah, hang on a second.
Medium.
Mark is
And
at
then...
the McDonald's.
Yeah, sorry. I have to go.
Mark, you want to mute your
How do I
phone?
mute? I don't know how to mute. I'm sorry.
Oh, you
You
don't
wanna
want
mute
that?
your
Wait a
phone?
second.
Mute your computer.
He's on his phone. He's in his car.
I'm on...
Oh. Okay.
Okay. So hamgate
Yep.
.ampr, Alpha Mike Papa Romeo
Got it.
.org.
Got
And it is fully accessible from the 44 net or from the public internet.
I'll include that in the minutes. Thank you.
Okay. And there's links to each of the states and the state subnet scheme that we have for the 11 states here in the Northeast. And there's a link at the top of the page that says useful documents. If you go in there, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff. As I find new stuff, I throw it in there.
Super. All set.
All right. So 4-letter codes for the continents, and then 3-letter country identifier codes. Now, keep in mind, this particular document, written in 1994, was before the breakup of Yugoslavia. Okay. So Yugoslavia is now, what, 6 different countries now? 6, 7 different countries. So obviously that list will be updated by the international 3-letter country code that the UN ITU has on their list. But this is what it was when the document was made back then. And then anything underneath the country code is going to be a region. So it could be a county of a country. Like Ireland has 32 counties, if you include Northern Ireland, which soon they will be merging back together. At least that's the hope. A lot of these countries are about the size of different states that we have here in the United States. So their regional identifiers will be counties. For us here in the US, it's states. So it depends on what's the normal convention for wherever you are. Okay, these are just some examples. Like I said, this is from 30 years ago. But these were what they knew, that's what they were using. And local areas, like we're doing here, like I said before, in each state, each of the counties, there's a recognized 4-letter abbreviation of the county name. And that entire list for each of the states in the Northeast is in each state's subnet plan. If you go, I think it's like page 4 or 5, you'll see the complete list for the counties in your state. And explanation of how we're using the hierarchical addressing, and also how it matches up to zip codes. Okay, let's see. Let's see if I can. All right, that's sharing that. Trying to figure out, Don, do I stop sharing and go back to sharing to change to a different document? Don?
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
Yeah, the question was, if I wanted to stop sharing this particular document, but I wanted to bring something else up, do I have to stop the sharing and then start it up again?
No. No, just close your document and put another one up there.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see how that works. All right. Let's see. So
right now, we're looking at whatever you have on your screen. So if you change your screen, our picture is going to change.
Okay.
Unless something has happened.
All right. Well, right now, this is just a PDF. So if I switch the tabs, now you're seeing.
There it is. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. This is the network that NI2O put together down in Pennsylvania. And if you notice, he's talking about the new packet radio being used on 70 centimeters and hopefully in the future 900 megs, 33 centimeters. And these are the Nano TNCs that he's setting up on different bands and how he sets up his network. Just to give you an idea of how we do this, and then VPN it back into the state ham gate.
That's a nice way to do it. It's easy to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Not complicated.
Nope. And Mark is a networking professional.
Yeah, that is a smart picture.
In fact, back in 2004, 2005, 2006, he was my boss. And I knew him back from 97. We just happened to work at the same company down on Wall Street. So, yeah, he lays things out very nicely, very logically. And that's what he's got there. Let's see what other tabs I got here. NetROM parameters, we were talking about point-to-point links. That's why your NetROM quality with your forwarding partner, if it's done on UHF 9600 baud or AXIP through the internet, you would use the code of the quality setting of 203. All right, and this stands for everybody. Doesn't matter whether you're BPQ, JNOS, FBB, you name it. This is how NetROM works. This is how it was set up. And this is another one of the documents you can find on the Hamgate site as well. The only time you would use 192 as a quality setting is if your forwarding partner was let's say on VHF, and it was more than one person on that frequency. So your reliability of that link drops down. Okay, so all this divides into 256. So 203 divided by 256 is 80%. So you would expect an 80% reliability. But if you're going to be on a frequency that's shared with multiple stations, then you drop it down to 192. That would be 75% reliability. Now, taking that concept even further, we have different levels from, let's say, from me to my forwarding partner, and then to their forwarding partner, and then to their forwarding partner. So there's a mathematical relationship that each step you go, the reliability will get worse to get back to me. So it's got to go through multiple hops. And that's why we have the obsolescence rating, we have the quality ratings, because this is how NetROM works. Don't set a forwarding partner at 254. Higher than 203 is reserved for anything that you have yourself on your own personal LAN or on the same machine that this BBS is running on. So the most you should have for a forwarding partner somewhere is 203. Okay. Again, read the document. Everything's there.
Hey, Charles.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Good.
Sorry.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I got caught up on a phone call. I couldn't get off it. Sorry.
Okay.
Obviously, the agenda helped you keep the meeting rolling. So look at the
we're
Look-
rolling. We just don't have background filler information on the Arden Mesh and Meshtastic, which we were holding off waiting for you.
Okay. Well, we can go back to that.
But I've gotten into the white pages and hierarchical addressing. We've already covered NPR 70. Steve Stroh talked about a few things. And we talked about the VARA connection. So
Must be I'm up for Meshtastic, huh?
yeah.
Well, Meshtastic, I've been researching it. I bought some hardware. I haven't had a chance to deploy any yet. But the Meshtastic is a mesh network. Now, everybody groans when you hear mesh network. Unfortunately, it's a single frequency, but it's 900 megahertz in the US. Or you can do it on 433, but most people are deploying on 900 megahertz, mostly because you don't need your ham license to do this. So these Meshtastic radios and, for lack of a better term, digipeaters or repeaters, they all function in that same role. And it's real similar to what we all started with in Packet. If any of you were had been around in the days when we started with Packet and we didn't have backbone frequencies and we didn't have backbone links, everybody was just operating on a single frequency, much like what you're doing with APRS. The difference between this and APRS is UI frames, which is the equivalent of the TCP/IP UDP stuff, where you're, shotgun approach. You spray and pray. If somebody gets the packet, great. If not, they can't do a negative acknowledgement and get a resend, with the exception of messaging on APRS. And the thought is, these packets come out fast enough, you'll get another one and you'll be able to update your map. Meshtastic is not UDP, so it is connected packets. It's using the LoRa protocol, but not the LoRa WAN protocol. It's LoRa Mesh. LoRa is a very slow but a good protocol, so you're not going to be pushing any email and things like that. It's designed to basically be IoT, which means basic updates with data status packets, weather packets, things like that, with the idea that you can also use GPS, so you've got location based. And you run with an app that you use your cell phone, tablet, or laptop. You connect to your LoRa Mesh device, meaning the node, which is the equivalent of a TNC. You connect to that with Bluetooth, and you're using your smartphone not on the cellular network, not on the internet. You're just talking Bluetooth to your node, and that's it. You're using it as a glorified keyboard and keyboard and monitor. So you use Bluetooth, and a lot of the LoRa mesh is with a Meshtastic is nothing more than text messaging, but it's a decentralized text messaging system. Typically, they're not going out more than 7 hops, but you're using it just like kind of like you would with APRS. The mesh protocol version 2 has because it's using the location based and it's using the algorithms of the quality between the nodes. When you're doing more than one hop or hopping and trying to build the network with other mesh nodes that are out there, it actually strives to hop through the farthest node that it can hear, ostensibly creating a larger mesh and not massively hopping, causing collisions or congestion on the network because all the close nodes are constantly talking to each other and you can't get the data packets through for the farther nodes away. So that's what Meshtastic is kind of doing, but it's an interesting concept because you're starting to hear a lot of talk about it. You can find all kinds of YouTube videos on it, websites, but because it's not requiring our ham radio license, it's getting one heck of a momentum now. And enough momentum that it's going to erode at what people might have been joining ham radio for the data networking. If you don't need your ham license, and if people can put a mesh network together, a decentralized network, and the preppers love it, which is, preppers are a lot of times of similar mindset to ham radio and communications, emergency communications, build as you go. Meshtastic is really attractive to people for that. And in cities and populated areas, it's interesting because people are throwing a node up and they're kind of just sitting there waiting to see what they can hear and see from other nodes in their area. And so it's an interesting concept because of all that. It's getting really popular in England. There's definitely other areas that are using it, and but it's one to keep your eye on. And it's something that also, it does have some internet linking capabilities with the MQTT protocol. So you can tunnel and bridge networks over TCP/IP, which in theory we could do over our packet networks. If we had a linked packet network that was not relying upon the internet, there's no reason where you couldn't put Meshtastic nodes on a node site, a packet node site that has TCP/IP connectivity with MQTT and actually bridge via RF still the Meshtastic nodes with the packet node system.
We would just have to make sure through TCP access that we don't allow non-hams onto our network.
Yeah, there is that problem. No doubt. It's, if it were an emergency situation, the rules go out the window. But that is correct, Charles. You're absolutely correct on that. A lot of this hardware, you can get a Meshtastic node for $25. And a lot of the new nodes will operate on the 900 megahertz, but they'll also operate on the 433 megahertz with the same hardware. So you could put these Meshtastic nodes on a ham-only network if you wanted to. You can buy just 433 hardware, but a lot of the stuff from Heltec and the other common manufacturers have multi-band radios built right into the hardware. It's got a low transmit power. You're talking 22 dBm or less, but it's also got great power budgets. You're talking your signal sensitivity goes down to neg 130. That's 20 dB below what the strongest packet signal strengths need to be. That's 100 times increase in receive sensitivity. effectively 100 times increase in power, where you might think, oh, 900 megahertz isn't very powerful and 22 dBm isn't a lot of power. Well, when you're getting 100 times increase in your power budget, provided your noise floor isn't too high in your area, you're going to be surprised with what it'll do. I mean, some of these guys are doing 25, 30 kilometers point to point on good paths with this 900 megahertz unlicensed stuff. So there's some that have gone a lot farther where they're optimizing with directional antennas and things. The interesting thing about it is that all the stuff that you know about antennas and feed line and low losses and how you can get more range out of something still applies whether you're doing on 900 megahertz. And of course, the 900 megahertz, you could also technically be considered licensed. So again, the non-ham stuff, it will pose an interesting challenge.
It depends on the population density and closeness that may be using it in the non-licensed sphere, and how much signal collisions there would be on stuff that we're trying to push through. So that would raise the noise floor. If they happen to be on the same frequencies that you're using, now you have packet collisions.
Well, it may or it may not, because if it's using carrier sense multiple access, it may not raise the noise floor. It might lower a little bit of throughput. But this is all, if you've ever listened to it or watched it on a spectrum analyzer, it's low detection capability anyways, because it's short bursts, low power. It's kind of an interesting protocol.
Tell you what, Brian, bring your spectrum analyzer down to downtown Brooklyn or Manhattan, and let's see how it compares. It's very noisy down here, very crowded.
Understood, but it's, you know, you've also got Wi-Fi and all these other protocols that have been existing. It's not going to be perfect. You're not going to get the neg 130, neg 136 budget, but it's an interesting protocol. And as long as, you know, again, it's low throughput. It's basically just glorified text messaging, but you don't need the cellular network. You don't need Wi-Fi to do it. You can communicate within the range, and, you know, the number of hops is probably going to be about 6 hops. But again, the Mesh 2.0 protocol, 6 hops through each hop being the farthest one out that's detected, not the closest one. So it's worthy of consideration, of monitoring, learning about, and putting that tool in your toolbox. And, you know, there may be derivatives of it that become part of what we know as Packet now. I don't know how it's all going to evolve yet, but it's not going to go away. I can tell you that.
Well, as long as we have the common networking schema behind it, then it doesn't matter what we're connecting to it. You know, it's like when we started revitalizing packet radio in the Northeast, we had to get past the idea that, well, EastNet is only FlexNet systems URO node. It's any type of system, but we're using the same standards, the same protocols, over the air, TCP IP. So it's the same thing with mesh of any type of stripe. As long as they can talk TCP IP, we can integrate.
Yeah, TCP/IP is going to be the binding agent in all of these networks and the protocols, which is really nice because you know, you obviously covered on all that with the Hamgate and with 44net. You know, that's a lot of the tie that binds. So I just brought it up as a topic because, you know, it's interesting to start learning about, just like we're starting to learn about Vera and Vera on 6 meters, and you know, there's a lot of tools in the toolbox, and just like the NPR radios and stuff. So, and of course, some of this may change drastically depending on what the next rulemakings are going to be about the channel width sizes and what speeds we're going to be allowed to do. So,
we're already ignoring that, Brian. We're going ahead without there.
Well, we can't ignore it. It's going to, you know, something's going to happen. We don't know.
Just in the picture once in a while. It'll qualify.
Yep. So, but it's interesting. So where are we on the agenda, Charles? What
let's see. let me get my thing up here.
I got to say again, look at this turnout. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 20 people on. It's amazing. That's a great turnout. And a lot of names that I don't recognize. Even better.
Yeah, I sent out a bulletin on Packet last night.
Yeah, I saw the Packet bulletin. I sent it out on the EastNet list. And who knows where else it got to. So exciting stuff.
Okay, let's see. Radio. All right, so we're talking about transferring messages. So Radio Relay International, when it comes to, people typically think of the traffic system as emergency, priority, welfare, and routine. And a lot of people have gotten upset or discouraged because the bulk of the routine messages are basically bulk traffic. It's, your license is coming due, welcome to ham radio, and they're all book traffic. And personal messages are getting lost in the sauce and not being delivered. And mostly it's the last mile delivery point. We've tried to send messages to the Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, New Mexico area. And once it got lost at the statewide net, another time it got routed on Packet to Northern California, of all places. It's like, why? We even sent a message to Mark as a test from here to Southeast Pennsylvania, even had him on the phone asking him, did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? A week later. No, I still haven't gotten it. So while he's on the phone, we're contacting the people that are in different parts of the path that this message took. And somebody in, I think it was Scranton, Pennsylvania, said, oh yeah, I picked it off of Region 3 and I delivered it. Well, how'd you deliver it? It's like things are getting lost. So rather than constantly beating our head against the wall and just people getting discouraged that they send something and it's not received. So what they're looking to do, and this is a recent thing that has been discussed at their February 27th online meeting, has been voted on by the registered radio operators with them, and the board discussed it after that. What they're going to do going forward is sort of a parallel network where personal messages that are not bulk traffic are going to follow what the professional telegram systems did for a long time, and they call it a fast message, Foxtrot. Okay, so they'll wind up being 5 different message classifications.
So it's a new precedence class? Okay.
It's a new precedence class. It'll be the letter Foxtrot, meaning fast message, and it will only go through the radio relay affiliated members who are trained and who make the commitment to make sure this message gets delivered. And that includes the region and area DTN stations as well. So everything, you can see everything on their website, radiorelay.org. You'll see everything that's being discussed. And the training programs are just about being ramped up. We had a committee meeting Tuesday evening to talk about some of the details of what we wanted to put into the training and how we wanted to cover different things, including Packet and FL Digi. Because up until now, it's just been voice, WinLink, and CW. So we're looking to make sure that other methods are being used in there. And it's been agreed that any pathway that we can get the message through reliably is how we can actually do. Yes, we do want to go through certain area hubs and region hubs. I know Ray's on here. But if I have a message that is going to Ohio and KB8 UVN, who is heavily involved with traffic handling in Ohio, is one of my forwarding partners for the past 20 years. Hey, Matt, here's a message. And he just delivers it. Or make sure it's get delivered on one of the Ohio nets. So it's the reliability, the flexibility, and I'm doing it now with a lot of my packet forwarding partners, that if I've got a message going somewhere and I've got 3 different routes to get to them, I'll send it 3 times through each of my 3 different forwarding partners just to make sure it gets to where it has to go. Because in packet, it doesn't matter. Once you've got it, you just reject the duplicates.
Excellent. Well, that's another thing to keep an eye on, because, as packet network operators and stuff, we may be, connecting the Radio Relay International station sites and hubs and things like that. So we become a network, the transport mechanism, because we're building networks. And RRI becomes one of our key clients on networks and what they would use the network for. So it's important to stay abreast of this stuff.
Field of dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah. Then that's also like the wireless internet service industry. They think the fish are going to jump into the boat too. If you don't
no.
If you don't advertise it and tell people about it, that they will not come. They don't even know.
What happened? Ray Kinsella built the field, but the word got out.
Yep. Advertisement.
And
Charles, did everybody do introductions or?
No, we have not done that yet. And we have not done status checks yet. So you can do that now.
How about I'm just gonna, if we do round robin, go through everybody and they can comment on what we've talked about tonight. They can give any updates, and then because with 20 of us here, 20 plus of us here, it's going to take us a while to get through that, and we're already at 8:30. So how about we do that? You okay with that, Charles?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. John, KE2UN, unmute. Tell us what's going on. You got to unmute. Your microphone's muted. Let's hear your comments and any
Sorry
questions.
about the mute. They were making a noise outside my building. I don't know what the drill, what kind of going up now. I'm first time on this, so that's why you haven't heard much from me. But it won't be the last, hopefully.
Good.
And I got to get back into Packet again. It's been a while.
Are you on the EastNet mailing list?
Am I? I got so many mailing lists. I think I am. I'm not sure, but.
Okay, well, the group's IO is where you should find that and get signed up. Well, great.
Okay.
Thanks for your comments, John. Wayne, K1 VRF, let's hear from you tonight. Unmute. You're muted. Now you're still muted, Wayne. There you go.
Good evening. Good to be able to be heard this time. So good enough. It's status quo up here. We're still waiting for the state to put the tower up. I've programmed quite a few radios up at the EMA up in North Smithfield, the 991 Alphas and the DX10 and also, but that's for other things rather than Packet, but that's about all we're at the moment.
Okay, well, good.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update. Andrew, K1YMI, let's hear from you tonight.
Well, everything's the same here. Everything seems to be working. The forwarding on Vara to Jeff is going well. Likewise, playing with Meshtastic. So I gotten the parts together to build a node, a solar node, and stick that outside and watch nobody connect to it in my area, but we'll see what happens. I've had a couple of tests on that and had pretty good coverage just with the little antennas that are on there. They do at 900, even though they're tiny antennas, that, like you say, it's got really good coverage. So that's it.
Interesting technology, and we'll have more to talk about as we go on. That's awesome.
Definitely.
Ted, let's hear from you, buddy. Good to hear you. Are you up in Connecticut or are you still in Florida?
Yeah, okay, from K1YON, I'm in Connecticut. So very briefly, in Central Florida, we have a node in BBS in Claremont, Florida, backbone into Orlando, Florida, and then into Melbourne, and then into Vero Beach, then into Fort Pierce, and we also connect into West Palm Beach. It's running a BBQ system. And over a couple of years, we've been working on trying to connect Melbourne into the internet system and through WB2CMF, and Charles letting us get into the New York ham gate, I guess. Thank you, Charles. And a local ham down here that's real sharp on Linux, KC9UD. We have Melbourne now connecting into the ham gate. So thanks all around, and that's a update in Central Florida.
That's wonderful progress, Ted. Thanks for that report, and it's good to get them back into the fold.
Yeah,
And
Brian, could I just jump in for 1 second?
go ahead.
Yeah, since Ted mentioned BPQ systems being part of that, there's been a discussion on the BPQ mailing list the past day or so. I know I'm stirring the pot again. I'm sorry. Anybody who's got a BPQ system, do not automatically set your FBB forwarding protocol to B1 plus B2. B2 is only used for WinLink stations because they invented the protocol. All right. You might be able to get away with it going BPQ to BPQ, but trying to talk to any of these other stations, from my JNOS to the FBB systems, they do not have B2 in their protocols. They're not set up that way. So if it's not a BPQ or WinLink station, set it to B1 only. Don't do B1 plus B2 and figure it's going to sort itself out. It doesn't always sort itself out. So that reminder about BPQ, I just had to throw that in there.
And Charles, you're talking about B1, that's Bravo, number one?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's the compression protocol.
And that's located in a file someplace?
I don't have a BPQ system, but there is a screen. I've seen pictures of it, that there are little check boxes for forwarding for your forwarding partner.
Okay, because I've been asked that question and I don't know the answer, so I'll just mention something about B1 and they should know, huh?
Yeah, Glenn, go ahead.
Yeah, you can set the protocol by your forwarding partner. So it's all right in the forwarding section where you set up each of your partners. There's options for B1 or B2, and you want B1.
Okay, Glenn, thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Charles. Frank, N2 UMC. Let's hear from you tonight. Any comments on what we talked about, all that stuff.
Yeah, good evening, guys. I'm brand new to all this stuff. Real quick, history. I've known Charlie for 20 years. I'm on his chain enough. I was trying to get FLDG, but I think it was more important to get my general, which I passed 5 days ago. Other than that, I can pass anything over to Charlie. He was the best man at my wedding, so I guess I'm one up on a lot of you guys.
Well, we welcome you and thank that you're here tonight. That's awesome.
Back to you.
Steve, NAGNU, can we get all commentary, all that stuff? Let's hear from you.
NAGNJ.
Oh yeah, GNJ. My bifocal.
Folks, it's really fantastic to hear a group like yours go into town talking about not just Packet, but all the other technologies that can be integrated, like new packet radio and Meshtastic. We don't, unfortunately, as progressive as we were back in the day, my bragging point is that we had at one point 4 9600 bits per second mesh or bit regen repeaters on the air in the Seattle area. There is no packet network to speak of in Western Washington that I'm aware of, other than WinLink and APRS. So you guys are way ahead of the curve, and congrats. And I'm just following along on your coattails.
No problem. And
And
those of
thank you,
yeah, those of
and
you,
thank you, Brian, for cluing me in to this, because I've been following the list ever since.
for those of you who aren't familiar or don't recognize Steve's call sign and name, he's the author of the Zero Retries newsletter. And Steve, go ahead and do a little plug for those who might on this group that might not be a part of your mailing list and subscribers to your newsletter, and go ahead and make a plug.
Well, there was a brief mention of it earlier, and thank you for the flurry of subscriptions there. There was a paid subscription and several free ones. There is no difference in the content between the paid and free subscriptions. The paid are nice to have. Basically, Zero Retries is a bit of a love letter to amateur radio, and especially the stuff that, you know, really nurtured me. Like Brian, I'm a survivor of the wireless internet access industry, although Brian's still duking it out and I gave up. So I learned a hell of a lot from Packet Radio, and what was really frustrating me watching the amateur radio publishing industrial complex, you can imagine what I mean with the, you know, CQ and the death of CQ and, you know, the slowdown of QST, that there was so much going on, like exactly what you guys are talking about, and it wasn't getting reported. And it was endlessly frustrating. And finally, you know, I had enough time on my hands, and there was this new newsletter system called Substack that finally was the model that I really wanted. You know, I basically just write, hit send, and it goes out, and the subscribers manage each other. The company that runs the Substack deals with, you know, any billing issues, et cetera. And I'm free to write. So I write. And Zero Retries comes out at 15:30 Pacific every week, or as close as I can make it. And I just talk about whatever I'm seeing that's really interesting. And I've talked at length about New Packet Radio. I talked at length ad nauseum about the why the FCC ought to relax the bandwidth limits on the VHF UHF bands. And I was on a conference call prior to that the participants I still can't disclose, but I was shocked that I was one of the more conservative views on that discussion. And that discussion swayed me that it was feasible to do the big ask of just delete the bandwidth limits on all the VHF UHF bands and depend on the other sections of Part 97 to, you know, let sanity prevail. So yep, Zero Retries is my way of contributing into the ether. And I haven't heard anything discussed about VARA FM, but boy, guys, if you want to see zippy communications on VHF UHF, try out VARA FM. It's just amazing. 25 kilobits per second from a radio that you could you know, if you have a 9600 baud capable radio, you can do 25 kilobits per second. And if you don't have one, you know, just the typical mic speaker connection like a TNC, you can do 1200 bits per second. I'm sorry, 12,000 bits per second, 12 kilobits per second with VARA FM. So enough blathering. Thank you, Brian. Back to net.
Thanks, Steve. Mark, K1MBL. It looks like you just
He just got his extra tonight.
Yes, an
Congrats.
hour ago. An hour ago. Yeah.
excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's why I'm late. Because I joined. It's the first time I'm here. I joined because I saw a couple of bullet points on the agenda. First one was Vera, and the second one was Meshtastic. I missed the Vera one. Too bad, because I tried APRS over Vera HF and I couldn't get it to work. So probably have to dive in more. But what you just said with 25 kilobits on Vera FM, okay, I probably have to try this again.
Very good. Well, there's a lot of technical stuff with the radios and the bandwidth and all that, but that's all subject to change in the near future too. So
Right.
very good. Let's see, Sarvan. Go ahead. Let's hear your comments. I wasn't around for the introduction, so for my benefit, introduce yourself real quick and have any comments about the topics tonight and things like that.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I am in Manhattan, so I'm part of a Charles group. He helps us a lot in terms of a lot of things. I learn a lot from Charles' activities, like he gets us involved. So we tried few things, and I tried a little bit harder to make it work because I'm newbie kind of to the whole ham radio hobby. I want to give a try to the mesh tastic. I'm gonna give a try. I'm looking at the hardware. I have no hardware. I have no Raspberry Pi. I don't have that knowledge. I'm not a technology guy, even though a lot of my friends are in technology. I have a good access to technology, but I work in finance. I'm a pure accounting finance guy. So I got into ham radio for some reason.
Well, you're
so I'm learning my.
you're gonna need finance for ham radio, so that's a good thing to be in.
I'm more like an accounting, finance, and trading guy. Yeah, but I like this hobby, and I'm trying to put as much as time I can. But it's a full-time job, and I'm working in a trade house and broker dealer, so it's a pretty tough time to get into it. Spend too much time on this, but I'm hoping to spend more time this summer when my wife is traveling. So I have some plans this summer to try some few new ideas.
Oh,
One of them
great.
is Mestastic.
Excellent. Well, welcome. And that's why we're all here. We're here to learn. We're not all experts, and that's how we do things.
While the
Don.
wife's away, the ham will play.
Yes.
Thank you.
Don, before I forget, K1CMM, if you can publish a recording of this, a link to it when we're done. There was somebody who sent me an email, said he wasn't going to make the meeting tonight, but he was really curious about the topics we were covering. So if you can publish a link to the recording, there's at least one individual that wants it, and then I'll let him know about that. But let's hear your comments, Don, and sorry to hear about your life changes and the things that have happened, but let's hear from you tonight.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Well, yeah, I have been placing the recordings in Chris's Dropbox, and he is putting it on a website someplace, I thought.
Okay.
It's too large for me to email it to any of the groups.
That's fine.
So that's how we figured that we'd get it published.
That works. Okay.
So, and I have nothing else to report this evening. It's
all right, Don.
You know my situation.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Yep.
Chuck, NC8AQ, you're up next.
Hello, Brian and everybody. I showed up tonight to get the get my video turned on. Showed up tonight to catch your Arden node can be easily tied to 44net, and they jumped right over that tonight because you weren't here. And we've got 12 minutes to go. Are you going to cover that tonight or not?
Oh, we can. So the latest release, the latest nightly builds of Arden now support WireGuard. All of Charles' ham gates are WireGuard. So the short answer is talk to Charles, get connected to a ham gate using WireGuard in Arden Mesh. Does that answer your question on a short note?
Well, that's pretty short. So what does Charles need? I can give him a node name, and he's going to give me a
so
key.
Being that they just announced this in Arden, I don't know as he's got a whole protocol and stuff set up for how he wants to do that. Obviously, you're going to have to, let's see, you're in Ohio, so I don't even know.
Right. One of Chuck's questions before was about having a ham gate in Ohio. And I told him that I had forwarded all the information, how to set one up to Matt, KB8UVN. So now we just got to get back in touch with Matt, see what he needs to set it up, and then they're off to the races.
Okay.
So no. Okay.
Well, I mean, let's keep pushing the cart, you know.
I'll get with Matt. I'm not
Right.
going to find it here. Thank you.
No, but that was a good question, and I'm sorry that I missed things. But all right, like who am I up to next? Don Ray N3HYM. Let's hear from you tonight. Did I lose you? No, you just shuffled on my screen. That's all.
I'm here.
There you go. Let's hear from you.
Well, I got the 440 on the air, Gable Park. I've been monitoring it for about a month now. I haven't heard any new calls, but it's up there plucking away on packet. Done some forwarding with N3MEL for personal and some traffic messages. So we got that link on VAR HF. And still working with RRI on their new protocol stuff they're bringing out. And we're going to have a meeting on how we're going to get some of that all set up. That's all I got.
Fantastic. You're in the thick of everything then. Well, thanks for the updates, and then it's good to hear from you. Pat, WB2CMF, let's hear from you.
Good evening, all. Well, we've had some successes the last 2 months or so. For one, Ted had mentioned that W4MLB is now back linked in again, first time in 3 years. And I really want to thank Charles for getting that set up through the New York ham gate, because there is no ham gate in Florida. And it doesn't look like there will be one anytime soon. So I really want to thank Charles for setting that all up. And I've been working with Ted and Jim Lauk, over the past month, and we finally have gotten that back. And it's linked into the network. It's linked into my node right now. And Brian, I was trying to set you up as a secondary FlexNet link, but your side isn't set up yet. Eventually, I think a lot of this should transfer over to Matt, KA1VSC, since he really took over for Brian and one URO. He's really taken over everything, and that's really where I think it should be, with maybe you or me as just a backup.
Okay.
And I've been in touch with Matt, and as soon as he's ready, we'll get that going too. The other one is the WA2PNU node, thanks to a member of our club who's much younger than most of us. He set me up with a mobile Wi-Fi unit for internet up at the site. So WA2PNU is once again back linked into the system. And an interesting thing happened, and I've been saying it for a couple of years. When we lost all our RF links, the node became essentially a dead node, and no one used it. And now, within a short month or 2 months that we now have access back into the network, our club has 70 members, and all of a sudden we have 20 members that are asking questions about how to get into Packet. So much so that they're forcing me to give a talk on how to use the BBS next month. So it really does make a difference. I mean, without links, it's a dead node.
Fantastic. That's fantastic news.
The last thing is the W2KPQ, the East Meadow node up on the medical center. I've just about given up on that. There's really no movement on it. The person who is responsible for getting the antenna back up, he really thinks it's a joke. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, I've screamed enough at their tech committee. I'm on their tech committee and I can't do anything. So I think it's just a problem with the club. No one seems to be really interested.
Yeah.
So
I'll keep ways to work around them, I guess.
Yeah. But with PNU back on the air and back in the network, I think that goes a long way to getting the local users back involved with it. So.
Well, let's try to get the link to K2PUT working as well up in Putnam County, and that'll help us as well. Get user radio back on.
Yeah, I think at this point, we're almost into April. We might as well wait until Ted comes back and then try to set up a time to go up there. One reason for that is that Ted's system is down because his PC died. So we lost the link to PNU over that. I thought if we can meet in person, I've got a brand new, well, I have a new PC already set up that I can just hand to Ted. So maybe, Ted, I think you said you're coming back late April. Maybe we can set aside some time, to visit the PUT site.
That sounds like a plan, Pat. Very good.
And I'll make time to be there as well.
Okay, that's all I got.
That's a lot. You've got a lot. That's one of the best reports you've been able to deliver in a long time. So
I've been waiting a long time for it, so it's
what do we hear about the guys from Lakehurst? Have they got their power situation figured out yet?
they're almost as bad as KPQ. I hear little bits and pieces, but there's really no forward movement.
Okay. Well, let's keep pushing that cart and see if we can get some movement.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Pat.
You're
Rusty, KE2PW, let's hear from you tonight. Need you to unmute. Or maybe you stepped away from your computer. Since you don't have your camera on, I can't tell. All right, maybe Rusty's doing something else. We'll come back to him. Tom, KE4QCM.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Can hear you. You sound great.
Yeah, Brian, we had communicated on email this evening. I was able to make the meeting. Good evening to everyone here on the meeting. It's my first meeting here. I've been trying to promote Packet Radio for the last 5 or 6 years here in the Atlanta area. So I have a local ham, KA4KKF David, also connected here. So we've been trying to get Packet Radio going again here in Georgia. Had an interest also in the 44 net, so maybe I can connect offline. I recognize a lot of the calls here from BBQ nodes and also HF packet. So great to hear everyone this evening and look forward to the next meeting.
Well, I welcome you. And just to remind everybody, we meet quarterly. And this is one of the quarterly meetings where we do it on a weeknight, a Thursday night. The next meeting will be in June. I don't remember what the date is, but that'll be a Saturday morning meeting. And then the following quarter, it'll be a Thursday evening meeting again. We do that purposely to try to accommodate everybody's schedules and availability. All right. Jeff, KP3FT, good to hear you tonight. You got any comments?
Yeah, Brian, how's my audio?
Sound perfect.
Okay, good. Well, the Vara links are working well. The link to Glenn and also K1 YMI and Andrew. We're going to be testing out a 30-meter vertical as a backbone using Vara in the near future. And I see that the W2 RGI node is back up.
Yeah, I made it up to the tower last night. So I put a new battery in the UPS, so that should probably stay working more right.
Working good. Yeah, I'm on I can hit it pretty well with the beam. The vertical, not quite, but the beam's working. So that's pretty much it.
Good to hear you. Thanks for being here tonight. Michael, WZ0C, let's hear from you tonight.
All right, good evening. So as people know, I run a JNOS BBS up here in Eastern Massachusetts. Right now, my 2-meter VBS interface is down because my radio is in the shop, but people can get to it through KW1U and then come over AXIP. The 2-meter APRS interface is still up. WE1H and I moved our link from 6 meters to 40 meters because of a hill in the way. We find that is working a lot better. Also, a couple new things I'm doing since the last status I gave is I now have an NTS gateway on APRS hosted on my bulletin board. It's called NTS GTE, so you can send an NTS radiogram via APRS. It'll come onto my board and then go on to DTN from there. So that's a new function. And also on the APRS side for my board, I'm sending out National Weather Service severe weather warnings onto APRS with the associated shape files. So if you have like APRS IS32, you can see where floods and tornadoes and all this fun stuff is on that map in real time over RF, which is nice if you're driving around in it. So I'm doing that for the Boston, Massachusetts Weather Office and the Gray, Maine Weather Office. So those are the updates on this side.
Could you do us a favor and do a little write-up and distribute that to the mailing list?
On those last things I said?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yep, sure can.
Because that's a neat new feature and probably stuff that people aren't completely aware of that we probably don't cover in depth enough here on these calls, and so that would be good.
Brian, Michael is also sending out the severe weather warning bulletins from the National Weather Service to the different ham gates, so that any station that links into the ham gate can get the weather reports, especially during severe storm season like we've had with the snowstorms coming through, and then we'll be having some stuff coming up in May.
Good. That's what we do. We disseminate information. Excellent. Well, good job, Michael. Thank you. David, KM4LQN. Good evening. Let's hear from you tonight.
Hello, everyone. Everything is fine down here in Central Virginia. We still are doing forwarding from Glen over VARA HF. And then I do VARA FM to the local digi that's running at the State Department of Emergency Management. Most of the people who use that system use 1200 baud packet. And I saw there was a VARA terminal update. One nice thing would be if VARA terminal added in a better timeout feature when we're joining the packet, the bulletin net, the packet net monthly. If you're composing your message and not typing, you get disconnected. Otherwise, everything's going really well here. We've got some people in the area that are playing with Meshtastic, but we don't have enough nodes to really have a network yet. And I have found that the RAK, the rack board, is way more power efficient. Like, it'll last on a battery for a week versus you're not going to get a day off of a Heltec or a LilyGo. And there's some people in the area that are playing with New Packet Radio NPR, but they're on the other side of the region, too far away. So I haven't really got into that yet, but they're trying to get some radios up at tower sites. And otherwise, it's nice to hear a little bit about 44net. I have a small allocation. I always tell myself I'm going to figure out some way to utilize that, but I haven't yet. Hope everyone's doing well.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Glenn, N3MEL, I'm sure you got a lot of great updates for us. Let's hear what you got tonight.
Hey, Brian, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Be here tonight. Yeah, we
speak up a little bit. Your audio's a little low.
All right, hang on. Let me get. How's that any better?
That's much better.
Okay. So still doing the VARA HF thing as we talked about, and that's going very well. And we're always in the market for more forwarding partners to continue to grow this up and down the East Coast. We're doing pretty well. That thing's gone along nicely. I did get accepted and got my membership approved with RRI. That's coming in the mail, I hear. So I'm going to get tied in with that group and see how things are going there. We're getting ready to start the March Packet Radio Bulletin Net this coming Sunday. We are ironically messing around with radiogram forms that David KN4LQN created for me down there in Virginia, that are HTML to text to fit the packet scenario. So you can create the thing on the web, on the website, fill out the whole form, save the data, and just do a copy and paste into a packet message. And that's what we're going to be asking for this month. And we're always looking for more people to join in the net. We think it's a great way to get packet people interested and give them something to do. And I've said all along, and NTS is probably one of the big ones that, for packet to really get a strong hold and be much better than WinLink, in my opinion, is that it needs a purpose again, right? So everybody here tonight is talking about some great stuff for packet radio. So I think that the resurgence of packet is well on its way. So I think that's all I have, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thanks for all your efforts. And, many hands make like work. So a lot of people on this call are taking a bite out of the big elephant, so to speak. The old saying is, how do you eat a whole elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. And if you got a couple of people eating on the elephant, then you can eat the thing easier. So thanks for your input.
A parallel method for putting the NTS messages on packet is if you are running FL Digi, FL Message, use the FL message for radiogram, fill it out in the form first, and then you do a file view in text format and just copy and paste that into a packet message. So
Okay.
there's plenty of ways to do this.
You know, that's another, when we come up with these little methods to do things, it would be nice if somebody can, you know, when they come up with these ideas, just push it onto the mailing list, just so people have got an easy way to document it. And then when they get time to try to play with it, they know where they can find some documentation. But thank you for that, Charles. Jeff Archambault, AJ2A, how are things up in the Adirondack region in New York State?
Hey, good evening, everyone. It's dude, we're there's still a little bit of snow on the ground back in the woods.
Not on top of your head?
Yes. Oh yeah, like I said, great to see the crowd. I mean, just great participation tonight. Great to see it. Yeah, I just got WireGuard running on my MikroTik router board, and I'm going through Starlink, so I'm HF all the way. So hey. And so I'll be looking to connect that to Hamgate. I'm just, you know, if anybody can help with the routing, IP routing, that would be, I could use some IP
Just send me the email, Jeff. We'll work through it.
Okay, right on, Charles. I've been playing with Meshtastic.
Yeah, I'm sure there's all kinds of people in the Adirondacks running around with. Actually, there's probably a fair number of hikers up there that might find use for it. So
Yeah. And really, I would like to see it on the Hadley Hill Fire Tower. Would be a great spot for a Meshtastic node. And then I'll be sending, once I get my parts, I'll be setting up a gateway and going down to like Gloversville and seeing if I can see it from there with my what the heck, there's so many freaking part numbers. That's a rack 4631. I can just that's all pre-programmed. I can just connect a USB battery pack to it and go driving and see if I can, and you know, use my cell phone and Bluetooth to it and see if I can see the gateway. So that'll be fun driving around with and seeing what its range is down the Sacandaga Valley. Yeah, I did write some notes. Still trying to get my packet node running. I can hear, I mean, I've got the radio going. It'll listen to the node, whatever it's, I think it's listen to well, whatever, and do KGC probably. I got to get my push to talk going. It's like, that's the only thing funky going on with that. Yeah, good to hear WZ0C's APRS stuff and N3MEL stuff. Is that APRS is a really has a whole lot of unused capabilities that can really be leveraged to play around with. Let's see. I have an MFJ 2070C with NetROM. If anybody wants to play with it, I'll send it all on to everybody. And I'm wondering about Arden funding for EastNet. And yeah, cool. That's me. Back to net.
thanks, Jeff. Good to hear from you. All right, let me see. Who haven't I got to yet? Joseph KJ0ELI. Let's hear from you tonight.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Welcome.
Great. First time. Just trying to get a feel for all this new means of communication. Trying to figure out how and where I fit in and all of this stuff. A lot of this stuff It's very deja vu coming from tech in the 90s and the wireless of broadband. So, it's very familiar. Just trying to get my head around what's going on with this today and how I can make it work.
Well, welcome, and I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that you're finding it at least somewhat entertaining. Most of the time, I'm just the entertaining one because people think I'm crazy, but that's all right. If I can be entertaining, it's a good thing. Jeff, KA4 KK, or no, David, KA4 KKF. Boy, that's a mouthful. Good, welcome, good evening. Let's hear from you tonight.
Oh, good evening. Yeah, I'm down here in the Atlanta area, Walton County. Run a BPQ station for WinLink stations for the area section down here, our county. And that's about it. Just Tom sent out an email. I thought I would join in and see what's going on and see what else I could get into.
Well, that's wonderful. Glad to have you, and glad to have everybody's participation and everything. So thank you for coming tonight.
All right. Thank you.
Marcel, VE3 UKW, you're bringing up the rear tonight, I guess, because I think we got everybody else.
Good evening. Yes, sounds like. Poking around, trying to get a feel for the whole thing and seeing what kind of shenanigans I can get up to with. Unfortunately, I seem to be in a desert when it comes to Packet. Packet HF over 300 baud is not really all that appealing, but the 44net is opening up some options. So I'm kind of playing with that.
Wonderful. All right, so let's see.
Andrew had to jump out and he had to go to work.
Yep, I see a lot of people jumped out, but that's good. We still got a lot of people here. We're about 10 minutes over what I thought we would be, so we could probably go on for hours and talk about this stuff.
Now, Brian?
Yeah, now you're here,
Rusty.
Rusty. All right, go ahead. Take a stab at it, Rusty.
For some reason, the space bar wouldn't unmute. We got pretty good success this winter with keeping 4 FlexNet nodes going. One of them on the State Police Headquarters in Albany. And with help from Charles and Pat, I keep the URO node going at my house. But I do have a little still frustration with that. If you bring up the shell, URO node shell, it times out in a very short period of time, and you can't do anything without having to reboot the shell. So if somebody knows, well, from what I read, it seems that somewhere in there, the initialization statement has a timeout feature at the end of the statement. And I don't know what file that's in, or even if I can modify the file. But if somebody comes across that knowledge, I'd appreciate sharing it with me. But other than that, again, thanks for your help too, Ryan, and say 7-3 all around.
Well, thank you, Rusty. And Pat, you're probably somebody that could help Rusty out with that because his node's very similar to mine because I gave him one of my computers. So, and you've done a lot of work on that one. So, well, good. Does anybody else have anything they want to go over before we kind of wrap this up?
There was one other thing I just remembered for Jeff. The Tryon group is looking at putting up a packet node in the Gloversville area and a WinLink node. There's a couple of private WinLink nodes, but they're up and down all the time. But he might want to get with somebody from the Tryon group and coordinate with getting a packet connection from Jeff to them.
Very good. Thanks, Rusty. I'll check that out.
I had
All
one
right,
last thing, Brian.
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
So I meant to mention that we've here in PA we've entered in some discussions.
Speak up a little bit again. Your audio's a little low.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I took the headphones off to let the dogs out. We've entered in some talks with FEMA, the state emergency management. They have a ton of assets across the state, and a lot of them are tower sites. And we're actually discussing with them. They're looking for some more work to do for them, and we have some real possibilities there. So we're discussing some nodes and some other things that might be possible with the state here as well. So we've engaged them, and the packet talk is going well.
Well, and if they need any justification, they can talk to Rusty and New York, because New York Emergency Management Homeland Security Office really supports EastNet a lot, and they provide some sites, and there's a lot of cooperation, collaboration with that. So if they need examples on how it's done on a statewide level, New York State's got some good ground they've already covered. So we can put them in touch with them if need be.
Very good. I will keep that in mind.
Great. All right, Charles, you got anything else?
No, I think we're pretty good at this point. Just keep the questions and the ideas flowing on the mailing list. I mean, sometimes the mailing list is dead for a long period of time, and all we hear is, Chris saying something about a website, or we need more nitty-gritty technical things being discussed, because we have a lot of brain power. We have a lot of experience in this group. So make use of it. Spread the word.
Yes, please. Well, I thank you
Brian,
all. Go ahead, Steve.
I just added a blurb to my newsletter as of this week. I have been asked about distributing zero retries contents over packet radio. And while I'm prohibited from doing that because that would be pecuniary interest, however modest pecuniary, there's nothing preventing as far as I can tell, there's nothing preventing anyone from doing so. And I'd be happy to, see any content reused. And it's a blanket permission statement, so you don't have to check with me before using it for amateur radio purposes or newsletters or lists or anything. So feel free.
Steve, if you can prepare a ASCII text 80 character wide version of what you want sent out, then we could easily insert that as bulletins.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. So if we
most people will try to do a copy and paste of HTML, and it just becomes very messy. So we needed hard and fast ASCII 80 characters max.
Do you need hard carriage returns at 80?
Yeah, your typical carriage return should be fine. Yeah, do a hard carriage return. This way it spaces out properly.
Oh, that
we'll try it.
Complicates my process, but I'll see what I can do.
All right, we'll create once, email it to me, Steve, and then we'll try it. And if it works out, great, then we've got a procedure.
I have no idea what your name is or email address.
Mine is n2nov@n2nov.net.
Just a moment. Got it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that, and that will help have reason for people to be on the air on the packet system. I know I enjoy zero retries over not typically a Saturday morning coffee. That's my first read. Sit down at the computer and read the newsletter. So thank you, and I hope everybody on this call is subscribed to zero retries, because it is very comprehensive and fun to read. With that, anybody else? Any last minute comments? 9:18. That's not too far over. And again, I apologize.
Brian or Don, what date in June, if somebody has a calendar?
June 8th. It's Saturday, June 8th, 0900.
June 8th, 0900. Thank you.
Go into the messages on the emailing list. The link is there to hook it up to your Google Calendar or your phone's calendar. There's no way you should ever miss a date. It's there permanently.
Very good. All right. With that, I'll call this All done. We'll stick a fork in and we're done. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone's time, consideration, and participation. Have a great night.
73, everyone. Stay
Good night.
safe.
Thanks, Don.
Done.